Hey, hello. I hope this goes okay. I've successfully managed to break Sonic Axe tech in the last half an hour. So we've remastered things. Hopefully this works. As you may have noticed by my ineptitude with sound and technology, I'm an architect, not a crazy kind of music sonic artist. I'm an architect that's interested in the global and urban implications of technology. So what I'll do this afternoon with my half hour is kind of tell you guys a story from what I call a visionary present, a place I call the Brave New Now, and it's an imaginary world stitched together from sites that we've visited on research expeditions and speculative projects and infrastructures that we've developed in the studio. It's a world assembled from physical landscapes of technology that we explore in the nomadic research studio that I run with Kate Davies in London called Unknown Fields, and the speculative architectures of film and fiction that are extrapolated out of them that I develop in my urban futures think tank, Tomorrow's Thoughts Today. It's kind of an idea of exaggerating the present, a form of extrapolating and extending the present and developing counter-narratives where we exaggerate the world to reveal invisible connections and phenomena. So tonight's story we're going to call City Everywhere, Kim Kardashian in the Shadows of Technology. No, actually, Kim Kardashian in the Dark Side of the Screen. I changed that at the last minute. And really what I'm interested in, what I want to talk about tonight is the way that emerging technologies are remaking what we think of place, what we think of community, or what we think of city. The city is both, at the moment, nowhere and everywhere. So this evening I want to explode this idea of what the city is, its technologies, and see it for what it has become, which is a collection of landscapes and networks distributed across the planet. And tonight we're going to look through the flickering screen or beyond the fog of the cloud into the shadows cast by our luminous technologies, from our digital cultures to the holes in the ground in which they begin their lives. And I want to start here, where hurtling above us at 7,000 miles per hour is an utterly improbable creation. Delicately dancing with gravity is the Google Earth satellite, which looks down on Earth and tiles together a digital map of its surface. So at the revolution of these images that we're so familiar with now, a pixel is less than 0.5 meter in scale, just a bit bigger than the width of our bodies. At this scale, we're a discoloration, a dead pixel thoroughly embedded in the grain of technology and indistinguishable from the city and the technology that surrounds us. So ancient craftsmen once measured the world using parts of our bodies. You know, the cubit was originally based on an elbow, or an inch is based on the measure of a thumb. And we once understood our world through patterns and systems that put the human or our own vision and patterns of occupation at the center of the structures that we design. So in the city everywhere, we're interested in what happens to a world where the dominant processes through which we experience and define space and landscape are no longer human, when the dominant processes shaping our planet exist beyond the physical spectrum. What happens in this place? Kimye happens. So our guide to the city everywhere tonight to help us find where this city is Kim Kardashian. Kim is the future no one wanted, but Kim is strangely the future already here, and she is unfortunately all too evenly distributed. So Kimye is a kind of a geological entity, a new species, a creature of the network, a media system. She's not just her physical self, but to think about Kimye, to think about cities and the spaces we inhabit, you have to imagine that they cast shadows across the planet in both physical and digital space. So Kim is joining us to take a tour on the city that she lives in, of the city that she has made, a tour while we listen to the mellow sounds of her media husband Kanye slowed down and stretched, so that perhaps it may become just bearable. It's a tour of the city everywhere, an atlas to a city scattered along a trajectory from the screen to the shadows they cast across the planet. So we stroke Kimye on our screen. She is Photoshop perfect, impossibly round, gleaming, seamless, untethered, aglow in a bedroom aurora. Our community, our city is not something we log on to. Where we are is not important anymore. The edge of our city must be longer than 8 characters and must be alphanumeric. It must include upper and lower case and at least one symbol. And Kim measures her age in phone generations. Remember when we had the iPhone 3GS, she says. Oh, we were so happy then. So Kim takes us to the residential district of City Everywhere, to the Samsung Towers, a comfortable place for us to start our tour. We put our ears to the cool, beveled aluminium door of one of the apartments and listen. Inside, we hear a woman called Duri drop a Samsung Galaxy SX phone onto the kitchen table. We hear it chime softly as it makes contact with the paper-thin Samsung Qi Smart Power charging mat. We hear her scream down the hallway at her husband, raising her voice above the Samsung air conditioner. Why does the new TV say LG on it, she says. Because it's made by LG, he replies. Are you trying to get us thrown out, she says. Our lease is up for review in 3 months, and you bought an LG TV into a Samsung housing block. What the hell will the neighbors say? So in the city everywhere, these new relationships to technology suggest new forms of community, where we're much closer to our virtual community than we are to our physical neighbors, where something like the Egyptian revolution is a community formed through a network. We are not Australian or English or Dutch anymore than we're Beliebers or Cumberbitches. We are Directioners or Little Monsters or Beehives or Katy Cats or Kanye Nations or Kimmy. Or Kimye. Oh, Kimye. So the dominant process of the earth is the creation and movement of information, and Kim is a big part of that. Where the hipsters of the city everywhere reimagine their fashion styles to follow the rates of Moore's law or software updates rather than a change in seasons. They adorn their drones the way that they once customized their phones. In the city, drones have become cultural creatures. Above an audience drifts the tribal drone, rescued from the mosh of an outdoor music festival. Or the glam rock drone, forever clinging to the hopes of a revival. Or the Mirrorball drone. Or the Harajuku drone, adorned in 2,000 phone charms. A menagerie of drones that drift through the world where technology becomes enculturated and the machine another kind of pet. An aerial infrastructure carrying speakers that live broadcasts the musical collaboration with John Cale, formerly the Velvet Underground. They become a mobile aerial infrastructure, a surround sound system that's taken to the air and thrown across the city as a drone orchestra. And the rumble of drone propellers becomes a new natural soundscape to the city of a new generation. And in the same skies, we see drifting on the thermals a new system of internet creatures. In the city everywhere, infrastructure has exploded into bits to roam the earth in an architecture of everywhere or an open source sky. And in the city everywhere, we watch the drone jockeys conduct a flock of interactive autonomous drones that form their own place-specific local Wi-Fi community and pirate file-sharing network. As an aerial Napster, they perform a balletic aerial choreography as their soft glow reflects in the glass of the city. And in the city everywhere, we start to imagine new geographically specific data cultures that emerge. And just like particular areas or neighborhoods in cities that have their own qualities and atmospheres, we imagine data suburbs. Where we once hung out in this area because that's where the hottest music uploads are. And above the picket fences drift suburban porn caches. Or revolutionary discussion boards create new public forums in the spaces of the city. And as we negotiate the data suburbs, Kim tells me that this is how they travel through the city. This is how they see the world. We are Google tourists, hyperlink adventurers traversing this new type of place, a new type of site or a new type of city, and places and cultures and lives start to exist here and only here. And we travel in a way without moving. And Kim and I come to the ghost territories in the city everywhere. And she takes me to one of her favorite places, an island just off the coast of the city. It's formed as a fiction. It's constructed, designed, and dispersed across the internet. It's a collection of forged fragments of this island called Adinolta. And this imaginary place is made manifest through hoax listings on Wikipedia and Google Maps, live webcams of scale model stage sets, faked articles on news sites, and green screen CGI composites on Flickr, YouTube, and Panoramio. And every image of this place is a render, and in every video is an animation. A live webcam broadcasts the fictional mining favelas on the island 24/7 to a world of Google Explorers and idle web procrastinators. And through the screen, they travel strangely to this island in the city, but what they're actually watching is a large-scale movie miniature model broadcasting live. If places and spaces exist solely through the mediums through which we experience them or consume them, then perhaps they become just as real as any other. So these digital landscapes could be conjured architectures of code or GPS tags and metadata to be read and disseminated by machines, experienced and inhabited by us. It's a kind of a geology, it's a landscape, it's a city that perhaps exists purely through the pixel.
Would you like to check in at your current location? Sharing location on Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, Google Plus, and MySpace. Digital cartographic landmark detected.
Architectures with a footprint solely in the GPS spectrum, where we watch imaginary GPS ghost icebergs drift through the shipping lanes, disrupting the autonomously navigating oil tankers. An oil company hides its activity behind the clouds of spoofed GPS mountains. Drivers misdirected drive off the edge of a cliff or into a lake. Architectures of pixels, data sets. And this is where these ghost landscapes live. Tripping the light fantastic and following the fiber, Kim and I now arrive at the data center infrastructure, where Kim and her ass broke the internet. This is what she broke when her ass broke the internet. This is the landscape of everything. All of our messages, our photos, inane chatter, hopes, dreams, and desires, and darkest fears are all here in these halls. When our collective history is digital, this is our generation's cultural repository. These are the halls of Facebook's data center in Prineville, Oregon. The rumble of drones has given way to the whir of cooling fans. And we stand on the roof of the data center and look out across the new periphery. And here in this anonymous shed is where they keep all the photos. And I mean all the photos. So every photograph that ever will be taken, every photograph that ever has been taken, lives here, behind the corrugated walls. It's not a cathedral, it's not a great library, it's Facebook's tin shed. And behind us, this nameless black building, is Apple's top secret data center. There is no logo here, no glowing apple, just a strange kind of disappearance through banality. And just up the road, Kim and I get as far as the gate of Google. This is as close as we get before a white SUV with that colorful Google logo on the side comes to tell us we have to leave. Racks and racks of search histories, Gmails, books, likes, and the history of everything sit behind that fence. All the world's data infrastructure is setting up a home here, in the middle of Oregon, at the confluence of cheap hydro energy and tax incentives. So these nowhere streets, this new periphery to the city everywhere, contains everything about who we are now. So at a time when our collective history is digital, this is our generation's cultural legacy. And it all sits just here, behind the thriftway, drenched in the stench of diner pancakes and simulation syrup. Kim asked me, is this internet a place to visit? Is it a site of pilgrimage, a space of congregation, to be inhabited like a church on Sundays, or is it a forest that we walk in on the weekends? Would we ever want to go and meet our digital selves, to gaze across the server racks and watch us winking back in a million LEDs of Facebook blue? We imagine the future of these informational landscapes. This is where the digital world comes to die. And even at this time of night, youngsters are digging for scraps of information, anything they can salvage and hope to sell on. Two of them are fighting over a morsel of text. I see the face of a one-time film star, a spectral mask, floating in the air like insect silk. And looking back at the city skyline, we see the ghosts rising from the outer regions. So many flickers of light, dots of color, notes of music, images, words, fragments drifting towards the vast shining edifices of the central zone in the financial district. And the moon's reflected blue sphere calls to them from each segment of polished glass. And this is where we head, to the central business district in the distance. What we realize is this center is not a center at all. The network connects here to the city and the cities offshore. It's outsourced as a task on Amazon's Mechanical Turk. Dispersed Amazon workers from around the world have sent us photos of their bedroom factories. These are the photos of workspaces of the city's mechanical workforce, taken by the workers themselves. For just a few cents, you can give a task to the crowd of the internet. The armies of TaskRabbit or Fiverr.com, the legions of cheap and willing labor, form this kind of corporate non-state of the city everywhere. And this is our new city, dispersed across the earth and tied together with the fiber tendrils of the network. Rooms scattered, a place of every place. So how would we even conceive of this type of city? Can we walk its corridors? Can we chat by the water cooler of the global office? We watch a film now created by outsourcing tasks to the internet, where every photo, every script, every room, every narrator really exists and has been hired remotely to document their own lives. The distributed workforce creates a self-portrait of their own city for us.
I usually wake up around 6 a.m.
Sitting back to back, we rarely talk to our colleagues.
And then I brush my teeth and
Our office stretches across India, Ethiopia, China, America, and beyond.
mouthwash.
We commute daily around the world of work and back again.
A one-bedroom apartment with a big living room area with tall ceilings, which is nice. Sometimes I switch it up between working in the bedroom and working in the living room, just for a change of scene.
Right now the weather is really cold and snowy and shitty. My living space is a small apartment in a college town. I go to work or school.
We find ourselves working for new employers on a daily basis. Sometimes we become the employers. The office must be an adaptable and flexible workspace. We must be prepared for any task.
Evening after office, go for some purchase. Otherwise, go for park or beach. Spend some time.
So we visit one of the physical islands of the city's offshore, built on the floating plastic garbage patch. It's a global city, a special economic zone drifting in international waters. The city everywhere is assembled from conceptual islands that global manufacture stitches together from the factory floors stretched across the planet. We pass the island of Levi's. Kim says we are not in Texas anymore. We're through the city everywhere, composed of all the places across the planet that are touched by the Levi's 501 supply chain. It's a city the size of the planet that we find in our pants. A pair of jeans travels 18,744 kilometers across the planet in its process of manufacture. If we were to collapse all of those processes down, it would be a single city, just 2 kilometers long. We passed the island of BMW. 14 nations collapsed into a car. We passed Nike Town, a population of 1.26 million workers, a little smaller than the size of Manhattan, a little bigger than Madrid. We passed the island of the Boeing 787. On this island is the largest interior volume in human history, the Boeing Everett Assembly Plant. We've conceived here with the Boeing jet of an object so complex, so intricate, that it requires a collective effort of the entire planet to build. It's a kind of a world project or a world object that stitches together landscapes, people and artifacts from across the globe, an object of technology made in everywhere. And on our island of production, we meet the iPhone girl. And Kim snaps a photo to test the camera of a new phone coming off the conveyor belt, but forgets to delete it. Is later discovered by someone in America and released to the media. It's a brief glimpse into this world behind the scenes and through the screen. And in the distance, the suicide nets sway, and her teeth gleam pearly white. If we did forensic data recovery on our new phones, what other traces of Kim's city would we find? Could we stitch together this forgotten hinterland, a collage of all the landscapes, places and faces that are required to produce our technologies? These are the human machines of the production line, orchestrated by efficiency algorithms, the real robots of our city of technology. A bus factory in Shanghai, a microwave production line trundles along. A toy helicopter factory test flies its products in a factory back room. Every plastic bucket, every yellow and cheap green kitchen sponge passes through here at some point. Our world of objects Kim and I walk the workers' dormitories. She is a smoke with Yang. He makes the phones for all the Kardashians. He is their local craftsman. They always love to visit Yang. And the holidays are here in the city. And Kim's party is coming up and she wants to buy Santa hats for Kanye and Courtney. Kimmy always buys direct from source. Kimmy always buys organic. And now we head to Cartier for some sapphire earrings. Kim can never resist a bit of bling. And in the city, we see the body repurposed as a sapphire mining machine. And the human conveyor belt dances in rhythm and rhyme. It's a kind of a syncopated dance troupe, dancing for €1 a day, dancing for Kimmy's sparkle. And Kim and I visit the second-hand shops for a bit of nostalgia and vintage digging. We see a new kind of mine site, imagined as a village organized around metals and hardware components. We see districts of rare earth magnets extraction, precincts of copper smelting. And after a recent run of news stories and bad publicity, the mining operations have moved indoors. And now kitchens and living rooms are mine sites. And next to the pot of noodles simmers the acid bath, dissolving circuit wafers and separating metals and flavoring tonight's soup. Kimmy loves kids. And Kim's batteries are running flat. She flickers and fades, and we travel on to this blood-red scar in the most precious rainforest on the planet. On the island of Madagascar, we visit a cobalt nickel mine. And Kim takes a photo with a concealed camera, powered by a battery made from the material extracted from this very mine. And the landscape becomes an agent in its own redemption and destruction. And Kim takes me to her romantic lookout spot. Her and Kanye had their first kiss here. We stare out across the gold mine. It's a site whose gold is embedded in all the pieces of technology we're carrying around with us now. It's a landscape that's been exploded into an endless constellation of artifacts. Just like this little guy, Kim's favorite pet, a cute but strangely annoying creature that lives in all our pockets. 0.034 grams of gold of this landscape are in here, are in these objects. And with every tech gadget we buy, with every choice to upgrade, we dig just a little deeper. And just like Kim, our gadgets are also geological processes. Earthly scars that are shaped by the virtual values of fluctuating gold prices. And these are the real-time models of the gold mine that are connected actually live to the data feed of the gold price index. And here we see in green the gold, and around it in white is the continually changing shape of the mine, soon to be carved out of the earth. So as the gold price is high, it becomes cost-effective to mine lower concentrations of gold, so the shape of the mine changes. As the gold price is low, then you just stick as close as possible to the gold ore body. So actually, when we look at these mine sites, when we look at Kim's lookout and she takes her first kiss, she's casting her eyes across the data geology, a kind of data visualization, as explosive diggers and drills have replaced the slow erosion of rivers and earthquakes. And we're scouring our economy into the archaeological record, a chronicle of the digital permutations that drive the modern world. The infrastructures of the digital world have extraordinary implications on physical and material experience. Our technologies cast shadows that stretch far and wide. And here, 1 kilometre below ground in the wilds of Australia, our new digital reality begins and ends its life. And finally, we arrive at the radioactive lake. We pick out shapes from the toxic clouds in the distance, pumped from the world's largest rare earth mineral refinery. Kim tidies her hair in the reflection on her screen. The material to polish the screen's glass comes from this very lake. Collapsed together in a single luminous surface, I see Kim and this black earth. We are making a vase for Kim to thank her for her tour. It's formed from the radioactive clay we collected from this very site. It's a Ming vase for the Kimye generation. She's gonna love it. It will sit beside her phone, the solid and the void, beside each other on the Kimye mantelpiece in their mansion. It's a new material aesthetic for the technologies born of the earth. And this is where we leave her. This is where we leave Kim behind. Our journey through the city everywhere has taken us across the earth, from the point of consumption to the hole in the ground, through landscapes at the scale of the pixel, affecting landscapes at the scale of mountains and canyons. It's important to travel to these places, both in fiction and in reality. So in this project, I released 80 canaries into a sealed gallery space. And slowly I increased the levels of CO2 in the gallery in line with predicted increases if our culture continues without change. It's an interior as a model of accelerated climate change. And against the rise in CO2, I narrate the predicted developments of technology, the wonders of possible progress, the wonders of our gadgetry, the wonders of ourselves. And in 50 years, the birds are no longer singing. If we listen, we're strolling towards a silent spring. And here comes Kanye again. We must get out in the world and follow these shadows to exaggerate the present and imagine how as designers we can begin instigating new cultural relationships to the inevitable byproducts of industry and technology. We can imagine objects and infrastructures with design shadows that stretch across the planet, generating new encounters and relationships with the complexities of a global context rather than individual sites and products. So some of the people we meet on our walk through the city with Kim are swept up in what the city could be. Others are reserved and look on with caution. It's a place of wonder and of fear. The city is vast and wondrous and strange. And from the center of the city everywhere, we look out over the gold price etched into an artificial Grand Canyon, while the Facebook photo shed hums and Kim's ass breaks the internet over and over and over again. And the city is already here, and its LEDs blink and its cooling fans spin. The city is vast and wondrous and strange. Thanks.